right? How's everyone feeling today? I hope everyone's doing good on whatever platform we're on. Um, how's everyone feeling? Right? I appreciate you all I appreciate every single one of you, wherever you are. Let's do this right. How you doing, everyone? I'm old man labor, right? On TikTok, YouTube, on every channel, TikTok, YouTube, um, Twitch, right? Uh, Let me fix the camera for me. Okay, there you go. All right, there you go. Somewhat. It looks like a prison picture, right? But how's everyone doing? I hope everyone's feeling good on whatever platform you're on. I appreciate every single one of you for even joining me, right? Thank you so much for joining me on all the platforms, right? So people are upset, right, with Zoran Mandani because Zoran is now polling at he's polling at 66%, right? He's polling at 66%. Can you believe it? While Donald Trump is polling at 33% approval rating, right? Um, and people can, right? Right? Can't believe, right? Unbelievable that Donald Trump is going all over, right? He's losing popularity. He's at 33% popularity rating, right? While at the same time, um, even though Zoran is at 66%, while Donald Trump is at a whopping 33% popularity rating, right? Donald Trump is at 33% popularity rating. Can you believe it? He's at the gutter, in the gutter, if there's any other way to describe it, right? Um, doing TikTok lives, doing YouTube, Facebook, all these other platforms, right? All these other platforms, I see that the MAGA people are not as enthusiastic about a lot of the things that Donald Trump is doing, right? And you know why? Because he backtracked on most of his promises, right? He backtracked on most of his promises. He said he was going to start new wars. He was going to end the war in Ukraine. Now he continues the war in Iran, refuses to back down because his ego is bruised, right? The fact that we went into a war with a country that was supposed to be a lot weaker and was supposed to be obliterated. This is a George W. Bush moment, right? Remember when George W. Bush said, if you remember, if you that old, where George W. Bush said that he was gonna go in to Iraq, and within 3 days, um, the Iraqi people were gonna congratulate the United States and cheer on uh, their liberators, right? 10 years later, we're still there, right? The same thing happened with Afghanistan. We said that we're going to have liberators, we're going to liberate the people, they were going to embrace us, and they were going to love us being there. And then it turns out that that never happened, right? That never happened. We never were embraced, right? We never were embraced. We never were uh, included, right? We never were included in the whole um, being embraced by people from all nationalities, right? So we have to come to the realization that maybe, possibly, we were being lied to. We weren't being told how it worked. We weren't being told 100% the truth as to what was happening, right? Till this day, Donald Trump has not really answered to the people. He has not told the people what we're doing there. They claim it was nuclear weapons and us stopping them from having nuclear capabilities. However, recently, Donald Trump signed a deal with Saudi Arabia, um, giving them the capabilities of getting nuclear facilities within within their country, right? And the nuclear capabilities were not going to be regulated by the International Atomic Energy Agency, right? They're going to be internally done, and it was going to be done by um, American scientists. And so the question is, why, if we're trying to get rid of nuclear weapons in one country, why are we giving nuclear weapons to another country, right? So my question is now, why we have right-wing people in trying to convince us and trying to gaslight us, trying to make us believe that whatever they say is exactly what it's supposed to be, right? It's definitely not true, right? Even in our own backyard, there's trouble brewing, right? There's always conflict between labor and the working people and the rich, right? Zoran Mandani tried to implement his peer-to-peer tax, right? Which would tax second homes of those people that have homes that are worth more than $1 million that they don't live in, right? They will have to pay um, an additional tax on those homes, which was supposed to collect $500 million. So the ex Adams administration official, um, Mastro, decided to sue the city in court to try to block the taxing of the rich. And that's the problem with the system, right? That the system is controlled by the super rich, the super wealthy, and not by individuals, not by the public, right? A lot of even the labor unions have become corrupt and they become part of the lobbyists. They become part of the corruption within the system, right? Trying to block um, Zoran from being successful because you would think that labor unions will be on the side of workers, but that's not necessarily always the case. They've become executives, they've become bosses. Many of them make you know, several $100,000, right? Like the president of TWU, John Samuelson, makes almost $400,000. Richard Davis made almost $300,000. And just being at home, right? Just being at home because he's nowhere to be found, right? And he signed an agreement with the union that he wasn't gonna be able to speak about his allegations or his time working in the union or the inside stuff that he knows about the union. So even though New York is a democratic state, it's also been corrupted from within because in the end of the day, Democrats and Republicans uh, end up working together to try to limit the reach of um, try to limit the reach of everyday um, people, everyday workers. Right? They don't want workers or the people that work so hard to support their families. They don't really want them to be successful at whatever they do. Why? They think that it's not the life that they should be living, right? They believe it's not the life they should be living. So that's the question I have for you. Why are they people uh, that are living their lives this way, right? They don't want the union to be successful, right? They don't want the unions to be successful. They don't want the regular people to be able to survive, right? That's the problem, right? The power. They love power. They love being in control. They love everything being on their side. They love being able to be driven around by chauffeurs. And so that's why I'm drawing the parallels between Trump not answering to the people and union bosses not answering to people. So there is the same level of corruption in in not only the federal government but also in the unions and even in democratic states, right? Right? Money interests don't like to be touched, like to be affected, and that's why so we still have a federal minimum wage that's only 7.25 an hour. Believe it or not, 7.25 an hour is the federal minimum wage. Can you believe it? 7.25 an hour. What can you buy with $7.25 in this world now? What can you buy with 7.25 an hour? It's not something that it's the right thing to do. It's not right that no one's pushing back. Even in New York, that the minimum wage is what, $16, 16.75 an hour, right? The federal minimum wage has gone up, right? But it's still not enough in this city for a worker to survive. It's not enough. You cannot like try to debate it and justify it. And the thing is that restaurant workers are paid even less. Let's see, let me check what's the minimum wage in New York. Okay, so it's $17 an hour, right? It's of January 1, 2026. The standard minimum wage in New York City is 17 per hour. This rate applies to standard employees across all work types, while specific lower cash wage rules apply to jobs that receive tips, right? So the jobs that receive tips, the minimum wage is even less. It's about $6 an hour. What is it? It's a lot less, right? Tip service employees, 14.15 per hour in cash wages plus a $2.85 tip credit. Tips food service workers, 11.35 per hour in cash wages plus a 5.65 tip credit. Index increase starting January 2027. The state minimum wage was just annually based on inflation tied to the consumer price index. All right. So can you imagine in a state like New York? So that means if you work part time, you work 20 hours, right? You work 20 hours at $17 an hour. What are you bringing home? $340 before taxes are taken out. It's ridiculous, right? It's a small amount of money, maybe $200 a month. The rent is in New York is $3,000 for an apartment easily, right? People talk about the landlords um suffering, the landlords not having enough money, right? I was watching a video online where people were complaining about how the landlords weren't making enough money, how the landlords were suffering, how having their rent freeze is a problem. But I don't see a problem with landlords having their rent frozen. They've been making fist over fist over fist of money, right? They're making a killing with a lot of money, right? They're making a lot of money, believe it or not. Everyone, double tap the screen, hit the like button, hit the share button. I appreciate you all for joining me. Um, I appreciate every single one of you. Old Man Labor live on all the channels. Um, Still getting it together on the streaming thing, right? Trying to make it better for you. Um, Trying to make it better for you. Trying not to debate, right? Trying not to debate people too much because so now this is another story that is, work related, right? Because soldiers that are on the ships have been complaining, sending messages to their loved ones, um, letting them know that the conditions on the carriers in Iran are not good, right? They restricted them from sending pictures, the soldiers that were on the ships. Trump gives green light to U.S. companies. Wrong story. Trump administration live updates. Concerns raised with conditions on Navy carrier in the Iran war. U.S. military Democratic senators are raising concerns about poor living conditions aboard a San Diego-based aircraft carrier that has been at sea for nearly 9 months. The ship, the USS Abraham Lincoln, has a crew of about 5,000 sailors and is supporting U.S. operations in the Middle East against Iran, right? And the lack of downtime for the crew, the more than 8.5 months at sea. The Lincoln, a San Diego-based aircraft carrier, with a crew of about 5,000 soldiers to support U.S. operations in the Middle East against Iran. In a letter to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Gunkow, the acting Navy Secretary, Senator Richard Blumenthal, Democrat of Connecticut, described a list of reported problems on the ship. There have been widespread reports of shortages of basic supplies, water contamination, plumbing issues, deteriorating mental health, deck safety concerns, and disruptions in the mail system, which have caused many care packages en route to the ship to be lost in transit for months. He wrote about the problems, many of which were reported earlier by Navy Times and Stars and Stripes, right? Um, and Stars and Stripes. Mr. Blumenthal added that the Trump administration has kept aircraft carriers at sea far longer than usual during its pressure campaign against Venezuela and its war with Iran. Senator Ruben Gallego, Democrat of Arizona, said in a social media post on Wednesday that he was requesting an overnight visit to the Lincoln for a bipartisan delegation of lawmakers. Right? Unlike Donald Trump, I've seen active duty and Mr. Gallego, who served in combat as a Marine, the way he's treating our service members and carries out this illegal war is just disgusting. It's dangerous. The Navy is sending the aircraft carrier virtual to the Middle East to relieve the Lincoln, according to a U.S. official who spoke on the Commission of Anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly about ship schedules. Mr. Heckscher pushed back on reports of poor conditions aboard the Lincoln. We make sure that every ship, every crew, every captain has everything we could provide them at every single moment. He told reporters during a visit to Panama Thursday. Some deployments are longer than others, and I have more respect and gratitude for those sailors than anybody. What they do in these high seas is in those austere conditions with less port calls. It's incredible. A second carrier, the USS George H.W. Bush, deployed on March 31st and is already operating in the Middle East. The Navy's newest carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, was deployed for 326 days before it returned home in May, breaking the record for the longest carrier deployment since the Vietnam War. June 24, 2025, was operated in the Mediterranean when it was redirected to the Caribbean. In October, as part of the force that captured President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela, in February, the ship was sent to the Middle East as part of a buildup of U.S. military forces in the region that launched the war against Iran late that month. During its deployment, the ship suffered a fire, food and mail shortages along with the mechanical problems. The longer warship deployments are the more they wear on people and equipment alike. When in constant operation, gear often begins to break or become inoperable. If replacement parts are not readily available, and the non-stop cycle can take the toll on morale. Keeping marshes out for extended periods also create other issues, such as any plans that keep ships in certain parts of the globe for strategic reasons, along interrupting shipyard maintenance schedules that are developed years in advance. The Navy has a lot of flexibility to react to contingency operations, but as those deployments get extended and demand more underway time outside of normal schedules, readiness and maintenance suffer. Mike Franklin, a retired Navy Vice Admiral, said in an interview, we just don't have the ability to recover from that quickly. It will take years. Lincoln still had to fill off attacks from Iran during the early phase of the war. Iran shot hundreds of missiles and one-way attack drones at our aircraft carrier. Mr. Hegg said to reporters at the Pentagon on April 8th. Every single one of those shots easily shot down miles and miles away from the Abe Lincoln. The Lincoln House also helped enforce the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports, which initially ran from April 13 until a ceasefire agreement was announced in mid-June and then resumed on July 15. During the first blockade, U.S. Central Command, which directs military operations across the Middle East, said its forces disabled 9 non-compliant vessels through gunfire and missile attacks, and had to redirect the 135 ships that ultimately complied with the blockade order. In the second blockade, there appear to have been fewer U.S. attacks on merchant ships. In most recent update of this 9, Central Command said it redirected 55 commercial vessels, disabled 2, and boarded 2 to ensure compliance, since the blockade was reinstated. When the Lincoln's relief will arrive is unclear, but the George Washington recently passed through the Strait of Malacca, a major transit route through the Pacific Ocean in Indonesian waters, heading west, according to a second U.S. official who spoke on the Canadian condition of anonymity to discuss warship movements. With the Navy's limited number of aircraft carriers being routinely pushed months beyond the scheduled deployment, Admiral Frank said will begin to limit their availability for combat operations in the future. I guarantee you that the first 2 years of the Trump administration will definitely affect the next 2 years of the Trump administration, he said. So these are long-term decisions that they make, right? And the working conditions are dire, difficult, um, stressful, right? Stressful, straight up stressful for the ships, right? For the people. Uh, it just straight up stressful. People don't want to deal with this. People want to deal with this reality that the whole system, the whole world is collapsing on them. That they don't have no control over um, their bodies or over the conditions. Um, imagine being stuck in a place where you can't really use the bathroom, right? Where you can't really use the bathroom, where uh, there's a shortage of food, right? Those videos that had emerged, there's some videos that had emerged um, that are showing, uh, right? Them showing uh, everything happening, right? Let me see. So, issue that uh, and workers are not expected, even soldiers that are workers. The same thing happens in our transit system. The same thing happens across our state, our city, across New York City, across the country, where workers are not respected and their effort and hard work is not respected. They're treated as disposable, right? They're treated as disposable, as if their hard work and labor are not important. But we know that they're hardworking, they are hardworking, right? Like they are important, they matter. Just like every other transit person that's making the system run matters. And there's always going to be rich bosses that want to run the system the way they want to run the system. They want to make as much money as they can because that's what they do. They love making as much money as they can, right? It's just a reality that there's too many bosses want to live the way they want to live, right? They don't care about what happens to you, to your family, to your loved ones. That's the problem with the whole system. That the system needs to change and needs to take into account the everyday people, right? Like just being able to take on everyday people, right? That's all. Regular people need to listen to. Workers need to be listened to across the board, wherever we are. I'll be back later. Okay, everyone? Thank you. I'm just trying this out, the software out, okay?